public comment. Any member of the public who'd like to speak will have 2 minutes to do so. Mr. Wright, you want to start us off?
You know, I object to all these programs. Every time we turn around, you got a program. You over-supervise. You spend over $400,000 a year on programs. Homeless people don't need no goddamn programs. They need permanent housing. You spend more money on programs than you do building a permanent housing, apartment building complex to house the people who you always campaign and act like you want to help. Gavin Newsom got upstaged last week by an apartment building complex that's being built by a nonprofit developer. He tried to flex and counter by saying if that developer doesn't produce, he's going to fine them $600,000. How you going to fine them when they're providing low-income, 100% affordable housing for low-income and very low-income bracket people without going through the bullshit that him and this administration has been doing for well over several years and generations of your administration? Now you got the new supervisors doing the same pattern. You spend, sfbos, you spend $400 million a year and got shitty results. You only got 133 beds for people who's got mental disabilities, and it's been stated by professionals that the best way to take care of the homeless problem is to give them permanent housing and then give them the mental services that you campaign that you want to use. You don't have nowhere to go. You don't have no shelters for people to go to. You got 8,000 people that's homeless out in the street, and you only got 2,000 shelter beds. But yet you want to get and produce all these programs and act like you're helping people. It's disgusting. I came in here and showed you how to build 2 towers at each and every location where you want to build a goddamn navigation center and house over the amount of people that's homeless and have a surplus of about 742 apartment building complexes. And you still don't move on it. It's called professional stupidity. And I'm not ashamed to tell you, because I'm holding you responsible. He talking about charging you $600,000 for not producing housing. When I finish my thesis, I'm going to charge you $600,000 for the homeless people that's out on the street when you got a goddamn budget of $12 million.
Thank you, Michael.
That's the most money that you ever had in your life. And I want to keep on speaking, too, because you let other people speak past their 2 minutes.
We did not.
You let them Asians and other nationalities speak past their time.
Okay, I'm going to clarify. Everyone has 2 minutes. However, if you speak a different language, then you get an additional 2 minutes for translation. Michael, please. Thank you. Next speaker.
That's an insult on my goddamn intelligence. That goddamn President Yee did it last week.
Michael.
You guys are racist.
Next speaker, please.
The closer your goddamn skin color is to white, the more goddamn preferential treatment you get. And I'm not afraid to tell you either.
Michael.
Michael, my ass. Call me Mr. Right.
Mr. Wright.
Shit, I'm tired, man. I'm tired of you taking advantage of people that can't defend themselves.
Good morning, committee. How are you? And supervisors. HSH has been in business 2 or 3 years. It's run very well. It has a wonderful director, very qualified director, but it's 2019. The most important issue in this city and nationwide, but especially this city, is homelessness. Homeless people should be treated fairly, and being treated fairly, they should have a commission like everyone else. If this were a department of Pacific Heights, those folks, they would demand they would have a commission. So I don't want our people, our unhoused citizens, to be treated any less than anyone else. You know, I'm an ED of 2 nonprofits. I would rather not have a board of directors. I could get a lot of stuff done, but it would be my stuff. You know, the Department of HSH has a great policy, but it's their policy. We, our citizens, our unhoused citizens, have a right to be able to influence policy. They can't do it right now. I co-chair the local homeless coordinating board, and we got a lot of citizens coming on board, but all we can do is sit there and shake our head or nod our head and say, you're right, ma'am, you're right, sir. But we can't take it any further. We have no governance ability to do that. And We just don't have enough power. They brought up the word HSOC. Now that really, as we, and I know we're going to do this, as we come to do this, we need to see where HSOC is going to fit. Maybe HSOC needs to be brought out of the police department and put back in the HSH like it really should. Because our unhoused citizens, the only thing they see from the city of San Francisco is HSOC pulling their tent down. Maybe that needs to be brought back into the homeless thing. So please do not consider this without making sure that this commission will have oversight, direct oversight over HSOC, because that's the most important things. People come to us every day, ma'am. And thank you all. Thank you.
Hi. My name is Mallory Hill. I'm speaking for San Francisco Housing Action Coalition. And I think our chief concern in opposing the proposed commission is efficiency. We're a proud supporter of Prop C, and we're very interested in working on solutions that deliver housing and services to people that are experiencing homelessness. And we want to do that as efficiently as possible. And we're not sure that a proposed commission that could cost in excess of $500,000 of funds that could be used for direct services for people experiencing homelessness is an efficient way to get that done. And also we haven't seen that the opportunities for additional public input would provide more opportunities to more people. That's an equitable increase in opportunity. We think if we want to help solve these crises, we need to remove bureaucracy and consolidate oversight, not duplicate it. And we're concerned that this proposed commission would result in the opposite. Thank you.
Good morning, supervisors. My name is Malia Chavez, and I'm here as the co-chair of HESPA, the Homeless Emergency Service Providers Association. We are 30 organizations strong, and we are here to support the proposal for an oversight commission for the Department of Homelessness and Supportive Housing. As Deputy Director of the Homeless Prenatal Program, I'm also here to represent that we support the Commission as a way to balance power and for facilitating decision-making around complex and difficult issues, which should not be the purview of just a few. Again, we've heard highlights around the policies that are impacted by these departments. A few examples that we've experienced as service providers are the pregnancy eligibility and the definition of families for access to coordinated entry and housing resources, as well as policies for individuals fleeing domestic violence. There's still a challenge as to individuals being able to access coordinated entry when staying at shelters. Again, another policy issue to be addressed. Budget priorities, such that Supervisor Haney already mentioned, around not having any input or oversight into just what the departments are thinking around prioritizing. And again, the biggest one that impacts all of us is the definition of homelessness, which we've moved away from the more humanitarian, inclusive definition of homelessness, which includes as families living in SROs and those that are doubled up. I also need to give a recommendation for the Eviction Defense Collaborative. They strongly support an oversight committee as it will help improve community awareness and involvement in the shelter grievance process. And Martina couldn't be here today, so she wanted me to make sure that you all knew that the EDC was really pulling for this as well. Thank you.
Good morning, supervisors. My name is Anadarko. I am the Director of Evaluation for Homeless Prenatal Program. Several years ago, our organization invested in an evaluation department in order to enhance transparency and accountability of our work. And we, as an organization, wanted to make sure that we had real-time reflection of how we are serving our clients and to respond to their needs. And this was incredibly powerful because we were able to focus our efforts and strategically innovate and improve our services on a weekly basis. And this is exactly the commitment and investment that I ask that we as a city make to create a commission that will enhance transparency and accountability for how we serve our homeless families. Looking and reflecting at the data of our clients that are coming to us for services over the past few years, I have noticed a disturbing trend. I have noticed that both the proportion and the actual number of families that are living in horrendous conditions with their children, such as outside or in a vehicle, is actually on the rise. This is exactly the type of data that I would like to present and discuss with an oversight committee, and I look forward to the ability to do so. Thank you.
Hello, supervisors. Thank you so much for having us here. My name is Cheng. I'm representing the San Francisco Chamber of Commerce. As you probably know, our 1,000 members are regularly impacted by homelessness every day, and we really commend the intent of this legislation. Transparency and solutions are always good when we're tackling such a difficult and complex issue as homelessness. However, we have a couple of concerns about this charter amendment. First, we want to posit that commissions can sometimes be an avenue for obstruction instead of progress. This Board of Supervisors knows itself that you had to take on the issue of renaming Harvey Milk Terminal yourself because the Airport Commission refused to take up the issue and move the issue up by themselves. That's a good example about how the Airport Commission prevented a significant change from being moved forward and for forcing the Board of Supervisors to take responsibility. We're all familiar with the Planning Commission and how the Planning Commission schedule works and is impacted on a regular basis. And we're familiar with DBI and how the DBI Commission, which has existed since eternity, has spent several years trying to build a universal permit database and has still failed, despite their very robust and chartered commission. Commissions also come with their own cost, and every dollar that we spend on the commission and the commission secretary inevitably is money that is not being used towards homeless services. We would encourage you to consider the idea of going towards an initiative ordinance instead of a charter amendment. I think Supervisor Haney brings up very valid points regarding the strengths of a chartered commission versus an ordinance commission, but homelessness is an evolving issue. And as Supervisor Haney brought up, the Department of Homelessness was just created in the past year or two. If the Department of Homelessness had been created after this charter amendment, this commission may not have had the ability to actually oversee the Department of Homelessness unless it went back to the voters and revised its mandate. And so as we think about how we structure homelessness going forward, flexibility is always better, not just because of a jurisdiction. Thank you so much.
Good morning. Jordan Davis here. I'm a member of the San Francisco chapter of DSA, which will be considering this for endorsement should it go on the ballot. And for identification purposes only, I'm on the city's single room occupancy task force, which deals a lot with the SH and HSH. And this is my first time in City Hall since last month's 21-day-long hunger strike over rents in HSH housing, which may not have been necessary if we had an HSH commission to make sure that this issue, the underlying issue, got hashed out. I want to thank Supervisor Haney for introducing this long overdue charter amendment, and thank you Supervisors Ronan and Walton for co-sponsoring. And someone who's had and will have decisions made about my life by HSH and their predecessors, I am sick and tired of people who think they know what's best for me, and all of us, issuing edicts from a proverbial smoke-filled back room. Hell, last year, HSH introduced a wellness check policy for their housing that, although there's a lot of different opinions on that, should have had more community input. And I was the one who had to bring this issue before the SRO task force so there'd be a public forum for it. And that's not getting into any issues around street homelessness and families and SROs. The complaints by so many bootlickers about this measure have no merit. They claim that will slow down housing and shelter. The reality is, on every other commission in this city, 90% of matters get approved anyway, and the other 10% have so many issues that will bite us in the ass later that delays are necessary, and virtually no supportive housing will be delayed by this commission. If anyone votes to delay supportive housing, I'd be the first to call for their removal. Right now, the city is considering for the ballot a Sunlight on Dark Money initiative, which has the support of 9 of 11 board members. It's a good initiative, but why can't they do the same for Sunlight on HSH? Please support this. It's not that hard. Thank you.
It's always tough to follow Jordan. Hello, supervisors. My name is Paul Monque with Compass Family Services. Compass is a nonprofit agency that's been in San Francisco for over 100 years that's focused on supporting homeless and at-risk families and accessing supportive housing, stable housing, and economic self-sufficiency. Right now, as Supervisor Haney alluded to, there is a patchwork of at least 5 different committees that all work in homelessness policy to some degree. And from the provider's perspective, it's often unclear where the real authority to issue policies and decisions really lies because of this network of different committees. From our perspective, we think that through a commission, we can really streamline the ability for providers to meaningfully engage, to meaningfully provide feedback on the potential impacts of proposed policies instead of bouncing from one committee to the next. We've heard concerns that having a commission would complicate bureaucracy, but the fact of the matter is, right now, the bureaucracy is complicated, and we feel very strongly that a commission structure would support greater coordination and communication between these bodies that are working in silos so that we can do right by homeless families that we need to support in getting into housing. So, thank you very much.
Hi, supervisors. My name is Sam Liu, and I work at the Coalition on Homelessness, and I'm also part of the Our City, Our Home Coalition, which helped pass Proposition C in November, and is also working on the implementation of the measure now. And both of these coalitions are in strong support of an HSH commission. As part of both of those coalitions, we think it makes a lot of sense that the Our City, Our Home Oversight Committee will be reporting to this HSH Commission and to the Board of Supervisors to ensure that the funds will best serve our unhoused neighbors. And as people who work closely with both the Department of Homelessness, there's, again, strong support. We've heard that this will slow things down, but I think we can all agree that a lot of the time, the department is already quite slow, and I'm going to give you one example. So the policy around homeless pregnant individuals, which excludes homeless pregnant individuals from entering family shelter until their 3rd trimester, or if they're in a high-risk pregnancy, has been in place for the past 3 years, and the community has provided extensive feedback around what this policy should look like, including the fact that if you are pregnant and homeless, you should be considered high risk anyways. And it's, again, taken 3 years for the department to approve a changed policy that still doesn't even include a lot of the community's recommendations. So we strongly believe that a commission would speed up a policy change such as this one so that community input is actually considered and so that things would happen more quickly than within the span of 3 years. So thank you so much.
Hello, supervisors. My name is Kelly Cutler. I'm a human rights organizer at the Coalition on Homelessness. And Dell basically took my talking points. So part of it is, you know, being on the local homeless coordinating board with Dell, I definitely completely embrace his frustration, how often we're told that we have no power. And it's an advisory board. And so just seeing that time and time again, and going back over the past year and looking at the meeting notes and being like, okay, yeah, there's an issue there. The other piece where it was interesting that HSOC was brought up because this is the city's coordinated response to homelessness. Okay, and if you know, for oversight, where we're told to go to the police commission, that's an issue. Okay, that's a huge issue, and so. Yeah, and even with the board, we were trying to write a letter regarding HSOC and told to go to the police commission because the police are running it. And so, yeah, so that's an issue. I'm basically done. I'm kind of cracking up that the Chamber of Commerce are here because I'm like, Prop C, hello. So, okay, that's it. Thanks.
Morning, Supervisors. Joe Wilson, Executive Director, Hospitality House. We are proud to support the call for a commission for the Department of Homelessness and Supportive Housing. At least a couple of points here. You know, that a commitment to democracy carries some risks here. So it may be that things do get slowed down. And there are those of us in San Francisco that have some recollection of the 60s and 70s, or redevelopment agency. And the Fillmore acted fairly quickly and without community input, and we know the results there. I actually have a summary of a feasibility study that was done out of Flint, Michigan, urging quick action and efficient action and cheap action that led to the poisoning of children of color. We don't want to act precipitously here. We want to make sure that if, in fact, we need to slow things down when necessary, we do that. Sometimes with the Embarcadero experience, it's messy, but we can handle it. The alternative is people don't get heard, right? People don't feel that they have a voice. They feel that decisions are made without their input. That's worse. We don't want to spend another day longer than we have to with an advisory body that has no real authority, where we know their department is with unilateral decision making and with policies that don't get vetted. So we have an opportunity to fix that. And I am proud to support that. Very gratified with your leadership on this. I think there's work to be done with the rest of the board to make sure that there is as close to a unanimous commitment to this, and I'm confident that we have the folks to do that. Thank you very much.
Good morning, supervisors. Thank you so much for the opportunity to speak on this topic. I'm Bridget Lee. I'm here on behalf of the Ed Lee Democratic Club. I'm here to speak on our concerns regarding this proposed charter amendment. We're worried that this measure, instead of providing valuable funding to homelessness programs, will create an unnecessary and costly commission. Creating more bureaucracy will offset any one governing body's responsibility to tackle the issue and its accountability to the public. We believe that it is critical that city government addresses the issue of providing services for our homeless residents, and it should do so by furthering on-the-ground solutions, not by creating bureaucracy. We encourage you to reconsider before moving towards the ballot. Thank you.
Hi, supervisors. Thank you for holding this space for public comment today. My name is John Adamski. I'm with the Coalition on Homelessness, and I just wanted to come and speak my support for creating this commission. I've been hearing a lot of concerns about efficiency, which I think is really important to talk about as we've addressed things already going slow and the problem of homelessness is so pressing. But the way I see it is that solving these complex problems requires community input, and it requires solutions that are coming from the community, and like Supervisor Haney said, it is more efficient to get plans through that won't work. It is more inefficient to get plans through that won't work and have to start over than it is to do our due diligence on the front end, crafting initiatives based on the expertise of those that are closest to the issue of homelessness and not having to go back and redo our work because we did it wrong the first time. And I also think that it's important to weigh the pros and cons of slowing down. If slowing down things by a few weeks means that the legislation will be more impactful, more resource efficient, and help more people, I see those few weeks as, for community consideration and improved outcomes, as incredibly worth it. So I think that we don't have to see things slowing down as a negative aspect of it. I think that we can see it as a time for greater consideration and investment in our community and investment in the ability for the resources that we're putting into this issue to go farther. So thank you so much for your consideration of this issue. I really hope that we can pass it and improve the way that we're doing homelessness services in the city. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Anak Soram. I'm a District 6 resident, an SRO resident, and formerly homeless. I'm personally in support of the Homeless Oversight Commission. I think it's incredibly important that we keep in mind that homelessness is not just a housing issue. There's intersections with labor, healthcare, education, and community integration. I think that it's really telling when my formerly homeless neighbors and people that I work with that are experiencing homelessness have solutions to the issues that aren't being trickled up to the decision makers. And so I see that it's essential that we have this Homeless Oversight Commission. Thank you so much for your support.
Good morning, board members. I'm Supervisor, sorry. Chris Calendarillo, Chief Operating Officer at Episcopal Community Services. We're here to support the legislation. We appreciate the work that's been done by Supervisor Haney's office and the department and the collaboration that's happened to evolve this over time. And we look forward to the deeper work after this, where we get to establish the bylaws and the processes that happen with the actual commission that gets seated. So thank you.
Is there any other member of the public who would wish to speak? Please come forward.
I think hopefully you can add the SROs or something like this for the SROs. It's very possible we have the worst SRO stock in the country. Now, the other situation is I'm in support of this legislation, but I feel like the clause about emergencies should be removed. You might have removed it because somebody can just declare an emergency and override the rules and regulations. We're having a major problem where you will open a navigation center, but call it a safe navigation center or call it something else. And right now, the San Francisco Administrative Code 2400 is being violated basically across the board in that no one is monitoring it from the city and county of San Francisco. The navigation centers, they're getting a free pass to violate the 2400. No one in the city is monitoring it. They shove it off on the shelter monitoring committee, and they don't have enough authority or resources to investigate when we're getting abused. So it's a perfect storm. The contractors will hire felons and drug users, and then they go work at the shelter with no type of vetting, and then when we get abused, we go to the shelter monitoring committee where they don't have enough power, foresight, authority. The comptroller, the city is continuously ignoring and pretty much going total opposite of what the comptroller is saying and what national homeless people are saying about homelessness. We're going total opposite, and you can see it. We're spending millions of dollars, and it's homeless is still going up. We're spending like $300 million.
Speaker time has elapsed.
It's going up.
Thank you so much for your public comment. Any other members of the public wish to speak? Seeing none, public comment is closed. Supervisor Haney.
Thank you, Chair Ronan and colleagues. I want to thank everybody who came out and spoke today. I especially want to recognize the service providers who are here, the members of the advisory committees who do such important work. I recognize that this is sort of an awkward thing to be coming out, and speaking in support of oversight over a department that you work so regularly with, that in some cases, award contracts to you all. So I'd imagine, I just want to appreciate your courage and your partnership on this. I think it says a lot that the people who are on the front lines of serving our population that's experiencing homelessness believe strongly that there should be more accountability, transparency, and public input. I think that says a lot. And yes, I talked a lot about speed, and I don't think this is going to slow things down, but there's nothing slower than when we get it wrong and have to repeat it over and over again because we didn't listen to people who are understanding on the ground what's happening, whether that's people who are experiencing homelessness or people who are working with people who are experiencing homelessness. We have to listen to these folks, not just at the beginning, but throughout the process to make sure that we get it right. And when we deny them that opportunity, we are going to create so many delays throughout the process because we're going to have to spend money to fix our mistakes. We're going to have to repeat things over again. So for the service providers and for people who are experiencing homelessness and people who work with them to say, we want more accountability, that says a lot. That says a lot about how confident you are in the work that you're doing, but also that it can always be improved by listening to people who have expertise, often direct lived experiences. So I want to appreciate you all for that. I do find it, as was said, a bit ironic that the same folks who opposed Prop C with the line, no accountability, no plan, and in many ways put us in the situation where we don't have enough funds to spend to address this crisis, are now saying that they don't want accountability, that actually they don't want additional oversight. I find that incredibly ironic and unfortunate, with all due respect, because in reality what we're saying is that there's value to accountability, and there's value to public oversight and process. And in fact, maybe if we had this commission, Prop C would have gotten the 2/3 that it needed, because we wouldn't have been so susceptible to that argument that these folks are now coming in here using and saying, actually, they're on the other side now. There's better, they should have flexibility. They should have, we should be able to do whatever we want around here. We know that if there's another opportunity to go forward for a funding measure, we are going to be attacked because there isn't accountability in place. So let's get ahead of this. Let's create structures that actually reflect the same level of oversight, public input, transparency as almost every other large department in our city. And let's say that we can do this better together. We can do this better when we listen to people who are impacted. We can do this better when people who are impacted are at the table. And yes, we agree, accountability is important. So thank you again, everyone, for coming in. I also want to recognize, as had been said, my staff, Courtney McDonald, who has worked so hard on this and has led this process and worked very collaboratively with the mayor's office and the Department of Homelessness to put forward these amendments.
Thank you. Supervisor Marr.
Thanks. I just wanted to briefly thank Supervisor Haney for all of your work on this, and your staff as well, and express my support for this important effort to create more public accountability and oversight to the Department of Homelessness and Supportive Housing. I also want to thank you for your work with the Mayor's Office and the department on ensuring that this, this as this moves forward and the Commission's created, that it best incorporates our existing advisory bodies and we have a really efficient commission and oversight, and I would like to be added as a co-sponsor. Thank you.
Great. So if we can accept the amendments without objection, those amendments pass, and then yay! Well, we have to actually pass it now.
So my understanding is that it has to be continued and come back next.
Did not realize that. Thank you.
Yeah.
That wasn't the case with the other measures.
Every amendment to a ballot measure requires an additional hearing in the same committee, even if it's a otherwise non-substantive amendment. This morning's charter amendment, the item 1 on today's agenda, was not amended, so you could have passed it out.
Got it. So if I can make a motion to continue this item to, are we continuing
July 15th.
To July 15th? Thank you so much. Without objection, that motion passes. Mr. Clerk, can you please read item number 4? Is that where we are? 4? Yeah.
Item number 4 is a motion withdrawing the charter amendment previously ordered submitted by the Board of Supervisors for the election to be held on November 5th, 2019, to establish the Free City College Fund to defray certain costs of City College students and to require annual appropriation in designated amounts to the fund. Board file number 181001.
Read them together?
Yeah, that'd be my...
4, 5, and
yes.
6? Oh, no, just 4 and 5.
4 and
just 4 and 5. Could you also read item number 5?
Yes, item number 5 is an ordinance amending the administrative code to modify the San Francisco City College Financial Assistance Fund, from which the city provides funding to